Hello, everybody out there. This is WordPress Tampa Bay. I am Jim True, the lead organizer for WordPress Tampa Bay, and below me we have Travis Lopes and Elaine Simmons. They are my co-organizers for WordPress Tampa Bay. You are here tonight for our Ask Us Anything crowdsourcing WordPress support workshop. And thank you very much for attending, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook Live. We do these meetups, these Ask Us Anything things, monthly on the third Tuesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. We are online for our AMAs live streaming just because it's more convenient. And we are still considering in-person stuff. It's a discussion topic. Let's just put it that way. Our meetup is at meetup.com/WP Tampa Bay. And our website is wptampabay.org. On our website, you have links to our Slack chat, our Facebook group, and our meetup links. And we are a member of the WordPress Tampa Bay Network. What the WordPress Tampa Bay Network is a combined group of meetups across Tampa Bay and Tampa, St. Petersburg, Brandon, Valrico, Newport Richey, and Lakeland. Our upcoming meetups and events. We are taking off for the summer. We're going to take a summer break. Woohoo! Vacation. So May, June, July, we are taking off. You'll see the notices go out probably within the next week. I'll put out the cancellation notices. We're going to discuss possibly extending it over August and September, but maybe not. We'll see. Last year we did June, July, August, and September. So this year we're doing May, June, and July. Anyway, so enjoy your summer. Have a wonderful time. Try not to get too sunburned. We're always looking for speakers. If you are in the WordPress space or web design space and want to talk about stuff, front end, back end, plugin reviews, theme reviews, anything pertinent to WordPress and web dev design, let us know. We'd love to hear you speak. If you've never spoken public before, that's not a problem because we're typically doing these online and you only have to look at our lovely faces and not realize that there are 1,000 people out there watching you. Although at the moment, I think there's only 2. So I think you're fine. This is also great for your resume, your LinkedIn, or your Twitter/X, or whatever they're calling it now, or your threads, which I just realized I forgot to publish anything about this on any of them. Oh well. If you are interested in speaking, go to our website at wptampabay.org and follow the speakers link at the top and call for speakers, or if you're looking at the website or looking at it's /speakers/call. Code of conduct tonight. There are no stupid questions except the one you didn't ask. We limit our discussion on questions to about 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that we can get all of them in the evening. And any more than that anyway on the discussions, and you should be hiring a consultant. And everyone gets to speak, but there's no crosstalk, please. Since we're using an online streaming environment and, microphones speak on top of each other, it's just better to, if you do want to speak, either raise your hand or just don't talk on top of each other. We may not have anybody join us tonight anyway. But if you are interested in joining us tonight, we're using StreamYard, and the invite link is posted in the chat for YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Once you click that link, you'll be given guest instructions from StreamYard that explain how to set up your microphone and your camera. Please make sure that you have got that tested before you join the call. Also, make sure that your microphone is muted if you're watching us also on Facebook or YouTube, because if you pop into the call and you're watching it on either one of those 2 channels, you'll get an echo cancellation. It sounds really nasty. So, wow, I can't believe we got through that so quickly. Questions, ask us anything. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that little guy, and I'll take us back to our full screen view, which is our full screen view. I think it's that one. That one? Yeah, okay. All right, our first question of the evening is from Christopher Spires. He asked us on Meetup, steps to debug a slow or very, very slow post-editor load times. More than likely, and we were looking at this when we were discussing it in our Slack chat, and what you're probably looking at anytime you've got a very slow performance on your website, you're probably looking at a conflict somewhere. And there's a couple of tools you can use. We recommend the health check and troubleshooting plugin by let me see if I can load that up real quick. Should have had that one open already, shouldn't I have?
It's by the WordPress.org community.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. How has it been a while since they updated that, or are they just not doing it?
It was last updated 4 months ago.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, isn't it? You know,
I
that's
mean, I
kind of
have plugins that haven't been updated in 2 or 3 years because they work.
yeah. I get that, but I mean, at the same time, it makes me a little concerned if they're not paying attention to it. Even I mean, we did it, but sometimes we would just touch it just so that it would get an updated because they start looking at them to be removed if you don't. Select window or screen. Let's see. I guess I'll just do this one. This is going to be fun. Uh, oh, I don't like this. With Chrome, you get to pick the tab. And Firefox sharing, you don't get to pick the tab. You know what? I'm going to do this real quick. Give me a second. I'm going to fire that up in another window.
But with the health check and troubleshooting plugin, there is a mode where just for your user, you can it'll automatically deactivate all plugins and switch the theme to the default theme, and then you can start turning on individual plugins and switch to different themes, and so you can test your site until like you find a conflict. This is something you'll typically see like if you write into support for a plugin company and you're saying like, hey, there's a problem I'm encountering with your plugin, and often the first step we'll ask you to do is to run a conflict test with the health check and troubleshooting plugin to try to determine whether or not that issue is with the plugin itself or conflicting with something else being used on your site.
Yeah.
But yet
Let me.
the audience will not see that you have turned on off all of the plugins.
Correct. That troubleshooting mode is only for your signed in user yourself.
Right. And that's typically the one you want to use test first, because there are times where the next step up would be to turn off all of your plugins and then turn on one at a time until you find the conflict. And that method is for, usually you'll need to use that if you're using something that is interacting with, I know e-commerce plugins, you definitely want to test them that way. What are some other ones that would be in that kind of a situation, Travis? Because I know we on our side, we always tell them if they're doing anything with like advanced post creation, anything that has to do like a REST API connection, those are plugins where you actually have to turn the plugin off and on. You can't just do the health check and troubleshooting. So, what would be some other ones like that?
None occurred to me specifically that you would need to do that on and off, like separate from the troubleshooting plugin, honestly.
I know Stripe does, and Stripe and PayPal Checkout and some of the others like that, especially if you're trying to do like connections like OAuth. We run into that a lot. So,
yeah. There's an event plugin that, has payment gateways, Event Manager Pro, that, is very touchy that way.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the other plugins you were suggesting too was Query Monitor, right?
Yes.
Here, I'll just fire that up again. WordPress.
So I can pull up Query Monitor.
I hate that you have to type in WordPress.org plugins. Now, you can't just go searching for plugins. You'll go automatically to WordPress.com, which is
so. Query Monitor is a great plugin. Because it will give you debug information on like everything that's happening on the page load. If there's PHP errors, whether they're warnings, notices, it'll list those. It'll list out all database queries that are happening on the page, including a subsection for slow database queries, which is great for like narrowing down like what might be causing a slowed page load, along with duplicate queries. You can see all the scripts and styles being enqueued on a page, all the hooks and actions that are being run, and like what plugin is calling them. You can see.
Would that catch like JavaScript console errors and stuff like that too, or?
No, but if a fun thing with Query Monitor is if an admin ajax.php call is happening, and there is an error that happens within that will get logged to the JavaScript console. To your browser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It also logs any transient updates, along with what's great is also HTTP API calls. Anything that's run through the WordPress HTTP API. So you can see
Okay.
a breakdown of like everything that's being called on a page and how long it's taking for those calls to happen. So that's another way
Okay.
you can narrow down what is taking a long time for a page load.
Yeah. It's not easy to use though, is it? Terribly easy.
I find it very easy to use personally.
Yeah, but you're a developer too.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
like
I used to use it. I used it a lot when I worked at Pods but mostly for the database queries.
Yeah.
So
if you take some,
what if you did find whatever an API was the thing that was clogging up a page or the problem, what would you do?
Well, it depends on like what plugin is calling that and like what the long response time. Like sometimes like you'll have like, hey, this was a 17-second long page load, but then if I go and like look at the HTTP API calls, it's like, oh, okay, it's because no one's visited this site in a while, and so the plugins, the updates plugin transient needs to be updated, which is what stores all the plugin update data. So it's like reaching out to all the different plugins that I have on the site to get the update data for them. Which if you have like a lot of premium plugins, it's doing a lot of individual calls.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
So like that's sometimes like what could cause a singular like 17-second page load. And then you reload the page again and like, hey, because that data is now cached for 12 hours, page loads immediately.
Well, like one of the nice things is you can see it there in the screenshot too, which is nice that they actually included that. Here's a, could not resolve host invalid test, but it actually shows you what the plugin is and what the caller is. And that's really
that part of the screenshot is from the HTTP API calls section.
Ah, wonderful. Okay, so that's the very bottom one listed in the little drop down too.
And it'll show you the status, like it'll highlight if it's like a 500 error or 403 forbidden, and it'll give you like the response time and like for any category where there's an issue like PHP errors or HTTP API call errors. The item in the admin bar will be highlighted red for if there's an error, or if there's a notice, you can see there it's like kind of like the amber, like kind of like the orange.
Yeah.
And you'll always see at the top in that admin bar item, it shows it is the page load time, memory usage, I want to say database query time and number of database queries, maybe?
Probably. That sounds about right. Yeah, Christopher had a follow-up question too. He said, will it monitor the post editor creation as also?
Yes, it will monitor that page. Another thing with the post editor specifically is like it's hard to know how much of that with like the new block editor is just like local loading time performance with all the JavaScript stuff happening, especially like with any external HTTP API calls that might be happening during that process. Now, anything that's being done over JavaScript, Query Monitor is not going to catch that.
Right.
So that's something where you would need to then switch to your browser console.
Yeah.
And like maybe filter network requests by XHR, which is what's going to pull all those.
And that would be like going to
that'd
be going like window or developer console.
Yes.
Generally, show like the
if you're on
show
Mac,
JavaScript console.
Yeah, if you're on Mac, it's Command Option I.
Yeah.
Pretty much every browser.
Yeah, I just try to tell them to get to your developer console and then go into is it network or is it console?
Yeah, are you able to pull that up?
I think so. Let me try that. Yeah, I'm on my Safari right now, so let me see if I can do that one. A second. Stop sharing that one. Share present. Share screen. It should have picked up the other screen now. Web Inspector. There we go. Allow. Okay. So like this is my Web Inspector from Safari.
Yes.
Right.
So here in the console tab, you'll see anything that's being written out to the JavaScript console with the main errors being highlighted in red.
Yep.
Like
this is an inject.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you switch to the network tab,
ta-da!
then you can, you'll see all the network requests that are happening on the page. If you could, if you go up to the right, where that little, no, back to the left. Slightly, yes, right next to it. Click that filter button.
Oh, the filter button right here. Got it. Yeah.
Yes. Does that show the...
I don't think that's the filter.
It's not giving me what I want.
Preserve log, group media.
Okay. Yeah. So go ahead and click that all.
Oh, you mean this one here? Maybe.
No. Click all. The drop down there.
It isn't all.
We don't see it. So is that drop down showing like the different types?
Yeah, it's showing document, CSS, image, font, JS, XHR fetch, other.
Yeah. So if you filter it by XHR, there's probably not anything on this page. But that is
Yeah,
where you would see all your Ajax requests happening.
got it.
I was getting slightly confused because in Chrome, it just shows all those options like straight across.
Hang on, let me fire up a.
But also in the web inspector in the network tab is also where you can like disable caching and stuff. So like if you're doing a lot of testing, you can make sure like none of the cache stuff is happening.
That makes
any
sense.
of the data is being cached.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully that helped, Christopher. Like I said, if you got any follow-up questions and stuff like that, if you're on our Facebook group or in our Slack chat, just drop a question in either one of those, and we'll help you, or try to anyway. Okay.
I would always leave Query Monitor on though.
Yeah. Query Monitor
always highlight like anytime there's an error on the page without you having to like actively search for it.
What do you mean leave it on? For like how long are you talking?
No, just leave it on.
Leave it on.
It doesn't actually take up any real resources. That's one of the nice things about it.
Oh wow, you're kidding. I didn't know.
Not at all.
Only admins see it. So
yeah, only admins see it
by default.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the health check and troubleshooting is great for finding the malfunctioning plugin or finding the malfunctioning theme. It's really good for that, especially if you're like doing stuff and you like, for some reason, this particular page doesn't look right. You can use troubleshooting, the health check and troubleshooting to turn off plugins and whatever, but only you can see it. Only no one else can see it. But it's not going to catch things if there are specific situations where it won't catch it. That's just all I can say. Sometimes you have no choice and you will have to actually go in and turn off plugins to catch it.
Which would then probably be a good time to create a staging
site, which is, let's jump into Dory's question. Because Dory had asked about staging site. And she didn't actually ask a specific question, but we will talk about, what staging sites are really good for. It's not a smart idea to work on your plugins or work on your live website. I'm going to try to take, that's my web inspector.
Unless you know what you're doing and like to live life on the edge.
It's called cowboy coding is what they call that, is when you basically are happy to work on a website without any kind of damage whatsoever. You don't care what you do. Let me put it this way.
Cowboy coding's a little more specific. That's when you're just like getting it on the production site, connecting over FTP and just like making live changes
or going into the what do you call it? The theme editor on the back end and enabling it and just coding right there.
I would argue that is slightly different.
It's safer now.
Yes, because there are actual syntax checks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I consider how sometimes you just go in and all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I've got 20 plugins to update. And I've done this too many times and I kick myself in the ass every single time I do it, where I will go into the website and just update all the plugins and then I break it. And then I have to restore from my backup. And it's very annoying. And I learned my lesson with WordPress Tampa Bay to always do my updates on staging first. And then, because one of the things I love about like WP Engine, Local by Flywheel,
Spin Up WP.
There's so many different little hosts out there. And most of them will do staging in like a minute. You click a button, say, drop everything to staging. And it just does it. And then you can test it. And you have a choice at that point of rolling your staging over the top of production. But, there are questions you need to ask yourself is, what kind of stuff do I have configured on this site that may be different at a staging level than a production level? Because you have the situations where you may have a development site and you have it connected to test sandboxes for your payment gateways, or maybe you've got it connected to different Zaps at Zapier or different external services, and your live site needs to be connected to the live services and your dev site needs to be connected to the dev services, or they have two entirely different URLs as their base URLs, and that means they've got two completely different REST API endpoints that the external services may be communicating with.
One thing I would definitely recommend when setting up a staging instance, especially if you're going to set up that staging instance and then frequently just like pull from production to override it rather than like setting up a fresh staging instance every time, is for your key plugins, whether that's like an e-commerce plugin, a form plugin, whatever, Check to see if they have any WordPress or PHP constants that can be defined. Turn that into a staging mode. And go ahead and define those in your WP config file. Like, for instance, we use easy digital downloads, and on our staging site, we put in the WP config, we enable staging modes. That way, it's always like kicking to like the Stripe sandbox, the PayPal sandbox, not sending out emails, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Dory asked a follow-up question. She goes, what's the best way to go about staging while waiting for a domain to transfer from host to host? You mean as far as like if you're talking about developing setup, that kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Because, you know, typically when you're working in that kind of situation, your website hasn't flipped yet. You're going to be working on a staging site that has its own separate domain regardless. And typically at that point, when you are ready to go live, you're going to go into the staging site and actually mark it as a new live site at their DNS level at the staging site. Because let's say I've got my production site on HostGator and I have my staging site is on Flywheel. I have a site set up in staging with, the little HT password locked off thing on Flywheel, and the site's ready to go live. It's using, like denisejacobs.flywheel.com or, WP Engine Power or what have you. When you're ready to go live, you're going to point your main DNS over to the new host, and then you're going to go in and change the naming structure. When you do that at the cPanel level or whatever they have on the back end, you'll be changing it to the new name for the production site anyway. And then as the DNS points, it'll just jump right over to the new site, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You may have to do some database changes, but nowadays, most domain companies, most hosting companies that are very familiar with WordPress, they're going to go ahead and do those search and replaces in the database for you. There are obviously some that don't, like HostGator, and I don't think SiteGround does. No, I haven't used SiteGround staging in forever, so I can't tell you for sure. But those are the things you basically have to do. Is you have to change your WordPress from whatever the name was before to the new name, site URL, web URL, those two settings, and then change it in the database. And that should be enough. You may want to set up a redirection tool as well, just to track if you have any changes and things like that. But
so slightly more advanced approach here, but it's something I've been researching recently because we just finished today migrating from Pagely over to DigitalOcean droplets that are powered by SpinUp WP. SpinUp WP has a great function for creating staging sites and stuff where there's two options. You can clone a site, which will create a replica of a site, change the domains like creating a staging site. And you can also refresh a site, which lets you take an existing site and like override the database and the files, which would be like once you have cloned that production site to staging, you can then refresh it in the future. But what's also great with that is cloning a site and refreshing a site, because in SpinUp WP, you're creating a server and then setting up sites on that server. You can clone and refresh sites across servers. So it doesn't have to maintain on one. Why this is important is you might run into an instance of you set up a server with SpinUp WP with your sites, and then you realize, hey, we are hitting a resource limit. We need to upgrade the server.
Right.
But we don't want to have any downtime. So in SpinUp WP, you can go ahead and create a new server and then clone the site from the current one to the new one and then switch over the DNS.
WP Engine
go
and
even
go ahead.
Step further, which is like super convenient. In DigitalOcean, you can create what are reserved IPs. In reserved IPs, you can transfer between droplets.
Oh, okay.
So you can change so you could like have an old instance, a new instance. And when you're ready to switch from old to new, you could just move the reserved IP from the old server to the new server and not have to worry about DNS.
Very smart. Yeah, that's actually really smart. I know WP Engine and Flywheel both. If you do need to change instances to it, or instance like to another blade or something of that nature, or another grouping of whatever they call them, they can do that for you. You just can't do it yourself. within their interface, you can drop to staging as anytime you want. It's pretty straightforward, but you only get one staging site. But you also have the ability within both of those to create new server instances that are considered, testing playgrounds. So as long as you have that within your hosting plan.
Well, how do you handle it when this is the problem I've come across? You have a premium plugin, they only allow one, live install.
Generally, those are using easy digital downloads and EDD built in. Checks for certain TLDs and like parts of the domain that flag staging, development, and stuff to bypass the activation limit.
Just make sure that if you're
set that up, how do I do that?
Well, you don't need to set up anything.
Yeah, EDD or typically your premium plugin will have that setup configured for them. Because I know Gravity Forms, we recognize specific patterns like WP Engine powered flywheel sites, that kind of name, the certain URL patterns that match domain or staging sites and production and development sites at different hosting companies.
Specifically, because most premium plugin providers use EDD.
Yeah.
And by default, it checks if the subdomain is development, if staging is one part of the subdomains, if test is part of it, if it's .wpengine.com, InstaWP, Cloudway apps, Flywheel sites, Flywheel staging, my FTP upload, Kinsta-Cloud. So it hits a lot of by default.
Yeah, WP Engine has now changed theirs to WP Engine Powered is what their new staging domain name is. And SiteGround has SG is typically theirs for their staging sites. So that's, you just have to check with the plugin provider. Most of them.
But those are the ones covered in EDD by default.
Yeah. Yeah, and but that's pretty much how you would do that, Elaine, is you would check with a plugin provider. Most of them will.
Them and they have not answered me.
Which one? Which plugin?
Events Manager Pro.
Oh. Sorry. I know they're not the events calendar. I know the Events Manager Pro. Yeah, they're.
But,
Yeah. Open a premium support ticket and go from that route. Because if they're paying for premium, they should be giving premium support, and then at that point, just go, okay, we're going to another plugin. Bye. So, or you have the possibility of like turning it off at one and returning it on at the other. Doing it at a downtime when they would typically be down. It maybe because most companies allow you to have a maintenance window to work on their website. So,
right.
Yeah.
Events Manager Pro does not appear to be using EDD.
Yeah, they're not.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have one. I use like a event calendar short code. They don't use EDD either. They're very specific about how they manage those license activations as well. And I just basically have to go in and turn them off on sites. I have a couple places where I use that are not public. They're basically hidden sites just for me. And I just disconnect them on those particular sites when I need them. So
ACF also does not.
Yeah, ACF is very bad about that, which is weird because ACF is WP Engine now, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, they should be doing something.
Like I get it because of the type of plugin it is.
Yeah, but they've got they have Delicious Brains now, don't they? Don't they own
yes
WPDB Migrate Pro? And they've got to know how to do this stuff.
Brains.
Yeah. They're Delicious Brains. Sorry, that had to do that one. I've always thought that was the funniest name.
Spin Up WP got spun off from Delicious Brains in that sense. WP
thank you.
Remains separate.
Okay, interesting. Good to know. Does that pretty much answer? Well, she's not on, but she might. Hopefully, that she said thank you. Dory said thanks. So I think we hit the most important pieces of that one. So we have one more question for tonight, and then I think we may be done. Ken Young asks, how do you deal with clients who text or email after 8 to 5 hours?
You don't.
That is exactly the correct answer there. Yeah, thank you. It's going to be hard if you haven't established this as part of your process ahead of time. But typically, let me see if I can find the...
But generally, it's like, here are my standard business hours.
Yeah.
If you contact me outside of that,
you're going to be charged a fortune.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's the easiest way to deal with it, is by telling them that you have to establish a premium rate for anyone that contacts you outside your business hours. And you have to enforce that, and you have to stick by it. I used to. I had one client that I just didn't want to deal with at all, and she called like as an emergency thing over the weekend, and she was paging and paging and emailing, and she'd basically broken her own site. I was done, and I basically came back to her and said, "Yeah, I'll happily go take a look at it. I'm going to be charging you $500 an hour for that." And
That's
and
what
that's
we do.
minimum. That's with a minimum 1 hour involvement. And she like freaked out. And I sat there and said, "Listen, honey, you run a kitchen. You run a commercial kitchen, and if your plumbing floods the entire kitchen in the middle of the night, and you call a plumber out to fix your plumbing in the middle of the night, minimum service call is going to be $300 to $500 an hour, minimum. Right now, even most plumbers, even in my neighborhood, a minimum service call is $250 an hour. And that does not include parts. That is just to have that tech come out and take a look at something on an emergency, with no notice. And that could be in the middle of the day. That could not be, that could be Monday through Friday in the middle of the day. That's called, you're asking me to drop everything, come check something. $250 an hour service call. Weekends should be higher. And overnight, even higher.
We see similar in plugin support of like people writing in of like, oh my God, I got to launch my site today and I just installed the thing and it doesn't work. Well, you're in the
bad.
normal queue. Like,
Yeah.
you don't plan better.
I honestly don't believe there are any plugin companies that do 24/7, 365.
No.
Hosting can do it sometimes. Even they have office hours. So you have to establish,
depending on the host.
Yeah, you have to establish office hours, and you have to stick by them and make that part of your contract. That's pretty much it, Ken. Is you really do have to make it part of your contract, and you have to stick it to them. Don't answer the phone after hours. Get up, set up a separate phone line or a Google Voice line that is only for work. If you haven't done it beforehand, do it now. Set up a separate voicemail for it, and make sure that it does not no notifications, no anything outside your office hours. And or do a phone service or answering service or AI answering service, whatever. But there is no communication after hours. And the problem is that
no outbound communication after hours. I would always be watching inbound just because you never know what's going on.
Yeah. But even then, you get them used to the idea and they go crazy. We had done a talk, and I know that Nathan Ingram has done a talk on clients from hell. And that's what those are considered, as clients from hell. Let me see if I've still got it on my website. I can't find.
I've been there before where I was doing, because this was in a phase where like I would do my work at 1:30 in the morning. I was younger and that's when I like to work. Mm-hmm. And I was working. Building out a new site, and I was working on like just a development instance. And the client was on the West Coast. I was doing my changes at 1:30 in the morning. And they were messaging me on Skype, asking me questions about it. It's like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Leave me alone.
He has done this talk actually several times. Nathan Ingram has done dealing with clients or dealing with problem clients, but it's also called Clients from Hell. I'm going to see if I can find the slide share. Oh, this is mine.
Well, when I message my hosting, maybe in office hours, maybe a little bit late or whenever, it'll say, we are offline right now. We will answer your question, and if you will hear from us in a few hours. And sometimes they get right back to you, and sometimes it is a few hours. But that's a nice way to say it, at least.
Yeah. I would say that's different, though, because
and we will be getting back to you.
That's different, though, I think, because like hosting is like an infrastructure thing.
Right. Yeah, hosting is completely different, because your hosting is supposed to be up 24/7, 365. That's kind of the thing, or 99% or 99.9% uptime, whatever they offer. And they'll do that. If they say they're going to do that, then that means you're either going to be paying for premium support, like after hour support, or you're going to be, or something of that nature. that's going to be reflected in your hosting cost, or it's going to be reflected in the pay and the support that you're paying for.
Similarly, why, like I say, there's no outbound communication to clients outside of business hours, but you're still monitoring things. Because, like, what if, like, they didn't do anything, but like, hey, there's a fatal error on the site that took it down because, like, some automatic update or something happened in the background. Like, you want to pay attention to that and like jump in.
I did this talk at well, God, back in the first year that we did WordPress St. Petersburg, and I was covering clients from hell, and I called this one the high maintenance drama queen because they have unrealistic expectations. Everything's a fire drill, and believes they are your only client. And the way you deal with them is you're calm and reassuring. When they're going insane, you are calm and reassuring always. Because when you add drama to drama, you create fire. When you don't do that, that doesn't happen. Well, that's interesting. I got balloons. And in those kind of situations too, when you're setting up the project with them, you overestimate and deliver less, so that they always, are going to be paying for what you are. Either they're going to be paying a lot more for the work, and you also have to help them identify real emergencies. And there's like the boundary pusher too. That's the one that calls at all hours, 24/7, expects you to as well, because they're working 24/7 and they want you to also work at 2:00 in the morning or whatever, or they may be foreign countries, that kind of thing. And it's the same type of thing. You maintain boundaries, charge premium for off hours, and you establish a rigid support process. So they engage you only through the support channels that you provide them. And there are no ways that they can contact you outside of those.
And also make sure, like, if this is a project where like you're actively involved in it, even in a maintenance role, make sure you're configuring the site so that way things they have access to, they can't easily break things.
Yes, that is correct. Make sure that they don't have the ability to break things.
That would be
Ken sounds like from he's been on the call before, he seems like he's pretty good with dealing with clients, but that's always a hard one because you want to be available to your customers. I get that. But at the same time, they need to be reasonable. And everybody has to recognize that, you're going to get charged more. If you try to contact me in the middle of the night, you're going to get charged more. And that's what's going to happen. And
how much you charge, how you choose to approach it is totally up to you, but you need to be rigid about, like, these are the proper business hours, and anything out of that is dealt with XYZ.
Yeah. And in that same vein too, you'll have those customers that are, they call the ninja client, which is another one which I love. It was where you never hear from them for months and months and months and months and months, or years even.
Favorite kind of customer.
And then they come in out of the blue and drop everything on you, like suddenly out of nowhere. And those kind of clients, the ones that basically, let's say if you're working on a project with them, and your project has timelines and they're at their stage of the delivery where you haven't received anything from them at all, and all of a sudden they've delivered everything and they want it all in next week, you have to establish expiration dates in your contracts, so that if they try to do that kind of thing where they've sat on something for a month or 6 months, and it's outside your expiration date of your contract, you've said that this project, you're going to be working on it with them for the next 3 months. The end of that 3 months, if they have not gotten back to you with their side of the project, and they haven't given you a reasonable reason to extend that expiration date, to extend the contract clause, you start all over again from ground one. And that has to be part of your contract, so that you are not being treated like that. Because, if you work in a contracting space where you got to do work on your house with permits and stuff like that, permits have an expiration date. If you don't get that work done within the permitted time frame, they start all over from ground one, inspections and everything. So, treat it like that. We don't have any extra questions. That's it. We have 2 whole viewers out there, so maybe it really was the right time to take a break and then have a wonderful little summer break, right? So we will see. Oh, first, let's do our thank yous. I forgot my little branding stuff. Shame on me. Bad banners. Brand. Where are they? What the hell? Oh, there they are. Okay. Make sure that you visit our website at wptampabay.org. You can find out all about our upcoming meetups, etc. Find out about our Slack chat, our Facebook group, all that wonderful stuff. Make sure that you also like and subscribe to us on YouTube. It helps the algorithm and make sure that we get seen, etc. And we will see you again in a couple of months, or several months, actually. Remember, we're taking off May,
Few
June,
months.
a few months. You'll see us in a few months. But if you pay attention to our meetup, pay attention to our Slack, pay attention to our Facebook group, we will probably be posting updates throughout the time frame. I'm trying to actually go back through some of our older videos and kind of condense them down into nice little nuggets, because we've got some good nuggets in this particular one specifically that are pretty helpful. And I would like to, hang on, weird, get those up on our YouTube. So we're going to definitely be posting stuff on the Facebook group, posting stuff on Slack. I may be wanting to start doing WordPress Wednesdays, even if that's just once a month, and I'll be posting those on the Meetup calendar as well for like local get-togethers at local restaurants in Lakeland. So we'll see. But anyway, I want to appreciate all of you guys tonight for coming this evening. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Elaine. Enjoy your summer holiday. Everybody else out there, enjoy your summer holiday. And we will see you in a couple of months, or a few months. Thank you for watching a recorded session from WordPress Tampa Bay Meetup. We meet monthly through Meetup on live stream on the third Tuesday of the month through our YouTube channel and Facebook group. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up in YouTube and be sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified of new videos. Find out more about WordPress Tampa Bay at our website at wptampabay.org. Thanks.